Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm sharing an emotional story that will touch your heart and remind you of the power of kindness and the darkness that can try to extinguish it. This is the story of Lily, a sweet 8-year-old girl, and Rusty, an injured stray dog who became her best friend. Every morning, Rusty would limp to Lily's windowsill, where she fed him and loved him, creating a bond that lit up their small town. But one day, the window stayed closed, and Rusty was gone. What happened next was a heartbreaking journey of crime, cruelty, and the fight for justice. In this 5-part story, you'll meet Lily and her family, feel their hope, fear, and pain, and discover the evil that threatened their peace. It's a tale of love that couldn't be broken, even by the worst kind of people. So grab a tissue, settle in, and get ready to be moved. If you love stories that tug at your heartstrings and show the strength of the human and animal spirit, don't forget to like this post and subscribe for more emotional tales like this. Let's spread the word about kindness and justice together. In a small peaceful town surrounded by tall green trees and chirping birds, there was a little house with a bright yellow door and flower boxes under every window. The house belonged to the Thompson family: Mom, Dad, and their sweet 8-year-old daughter, Lily. The family was kind and simple, living a quiet life where everyone knew each other. The neighborhood was safe, or at least it seemed that way, with children playing in the streets and neighbors waving hello as they passed by. Lily was a cheerful girl with big brown eyes and curly hair that bounced when she ran. She loved animals more than anything in the world. She had a fluffy cat named Whiskers and a goldfish named Bubbles, but she always dreamed of having a dog of her own. Her parents said no though, because they worried about the responsibility and the mess a dog might bring. But Lily didn't mind. She still found ways to be around animals, feeding the birds in the backyard and watching squirrels scamper up trees. One rainy morning, everything changed. It was a gloomy day, with dark clouds covering the sky and droplets tapping against the windows like tiny drums. Lily was sitting by the kitchen window, drawing pictures of dogs in her notebook, when she saw something move outside. At first she thought it was just a shadow, but then she noticed a pair of sad brown eyes staring back at her from the windowsill. It was a dog. A small scruffy dog with matted brown fur and a limp in his back leg. His fur was dirty, and there was a fresh cut on his side that looked painful. He looked scared, hungry, and alone. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She dropped her pencil and ran to the window, pressing her face against the glass. The dog didn't move. He just stood there, trembling, his tail tucked between his legs. Lily could see he was injured, and something about his big pleading eyes made her feel a rush of love and pity. "Mom, Dad," she shouted, her voice high and excited. "There's a dog outside. He's hurt." Her parents rushed over, and her mom, Sarah, gasped when she saw the animal. "Oh, poor thing," she said, her voice soft but worried. Her dad, Tom, a tall man with a kind face and calloused hands from working at the local hardware store, frowned. "He looks like he's been through a lot," he said. "But we can't just let him in. He might be sick or dangerous." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Please, Daddy. He's not dangerous. He's scared. Look at him," she begged, pointing at the dog, who was now lying down on the windowsill, too weak to stand for long. His ribs showed through his thin fur, and his eyes were so sad that even Tom felt a pang of guilt. After some arguing, Sarah relented. "Fine," she said. "But we'll feed him and call the animal shelter. They can take care of him." Lily clapped her hands, her face lighting up with joy. She grabbed a bowl from the kitchen, filled it with leftover chicken, and carefully opened the window. The dog flinched at first, but when he smelled the food, his nose twitched, and he slowly crept forward. Lily set the bowl down on the sill and stepped back, watching as the dog sniffed it cautiously, before gobbling the food down in seconds. From that day on, the dog became a regular visitor. Lily named him Rusty because of his reddish-brown fur, even though it was mostly covered in dirt. Every morning, no matter the weather, Rusty would limp to the windowsill at exactly 7 a.m. Lily would be waiting for him, her small hands holding a bowl of food, sometimes scraps, sometimes dog treats her mom bought from the store. She'd talk to him while he ate, telling him about her day at school, her drawings, and how much she wished he could come inside and be her friend. Rusty never barked or made a sound. He just listened, his tail wagging slowly, his eyes locked on Lily, as if she were the only person in the world who mattered. Sometimes, Lily would leave a blanket near the window for him to lie on after he ate. He'd curl up on it, his injured legs stretched out awkwardly, and watch her through the glass. It was as if he knew she was his safe place, the one person who cared when no one else did. The neighborhood kids noticed Rusty too. They'd stop by sometimes, pointing and whispering, but they never got too close. Some said he was a stray, who'd been dumped by his owners. Others thought he might have escaped from a farm. No one knew where he came from, or why he chose the Thompsons' house, but Lily didn't care about the rumors. To her, Rusty was family. Her parents watched this routine with mixed feelings. Sarah worried about Lily getting too attached to a dog they couldn't keep, and Tom was concerned about the animal's health. "We should take him to a vet," Tom said one evening, watching Rusty limp away into the woods after eating. "That leg doesn't look good, and he's too thin." But Lily begged them not to. "What if the vet takes him away?" she cried. "I promise I'll take care of him. Please, just let him keep coming." In the end, they agreed to let Rusty stay as long as he kept coming back. Every morning, Lily would wake up early, her heart racing with excitement, and rush to the window. And there he'd be, Rusty, faithful and quiet, waiting for her with those same sad, trusting eyes. It was a simple routine, but it meant everything to both of them. For Lily, it was a chance to love something that needed her. For Rusty, it was a reason to keep going, even when the world had been so cruel. Little did they know, their peaceful mornings were about to be shattered. But for now, the windowsill was their world. A place of hope, kindness, and an unspoken promise that neither would ever break. The next few weeks passed like a dream for Lily. Every morning, at exactly 7 a.m., Rusty would limp to the windowsill of the Thompsons' little yellow house. Lily would be there, her bright eyes sparkling with excitement, holding a bowl of food, or a treat she'd saved from her own snacks. She'd talk to him in her soft, cheerful voice, telling him about her school friends, her drawings, and how much she wished he could stay with her forever. Rusty would listen, his tail wagging slowly, his sad brown eyes filled with a quiet gratitude that made Lily's heart swell. Her parents, Sarah and Tom, watched this routine with a mix of concern and admiration. Sarah, a gentle woman who worked part-time at the library, worried that Lily was getting too attached to a stray dog they couldn't keep. "What if he stops coming one day?" she'd say to Tom in the evenings, her voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "She'll be heartbroken." Tom, a practical man who fixed things for a living, nodded but didn't argue. He saw how much joy Rusty brought Lily, and secretly, he'd grown fond of the dog too. Still, he agreed they should keep an eye on things. One chilly autumn morning, everything changed. Lily woke up early, as usual, her stomach fluttering with excitement. She threw on her slippers, and ran to the kitchen window, expecting to see Rusty waiting patiently on the sill, his fur damp from the morning dew. But the windowsill was empty. No Rusty, no sad brown eyes, no wagging tail, just the gray light of dawn, and the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Lily frowned, her heart sinking. "Maybe he's late," she whispered to herself, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. Rusty was never late. He was as reliable as the sunrise. She pressed her face against the glass, scanning the yard, and the edge of the woods where he usually disappeared after eating. Nothing, no movement, no sign of him. "Mom, Dad," Lily called, her voice trembling. Sarah and Tom hurried into the kitchen, still in their pajamas. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Sarah asked, kneeling beside her daughter. Lily pointed at the empty windowsill, tears welling up in her eyes. "Rusty's not here. He always comes, but he's not here today." Tom scratched his head, trying to stay calm. "Maybe he's just tired, or found some food somewhere else," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Sarah bit her lip, exchanging a worried glance with him. They both knew Rusty wasn't the kind of dog to just wander off. He had a routine, a purpose, and that purpose was Lily. The morning dragged on, each minute feeling like an hour. Lily refused to leave the window, her small hands clutching the edge of the sill, as if willing Rusty to appear. She called his name softly, her voice breaking with each word. "Rusty, where are you? Please come back." But the only answer was silence, broken only by the occasional chirp of a bird, or the distant bark of another dog. By lunchtime, Sarah couldn't take it anymore. She sat Lily down at the kitchen table, brushing her curly hair back from her face. "Honey, maybe Rusty needed a break," she said gently. "Stray dogs sometimes go where the food is. He might have found a new place." But Lily shook her head fiercely, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No, Mom, he wouldn't leave me. He loves me. Something's wrong, I know it." Tom, who had been pacing the living room, finally spoke up. "Sarah, she's right. That dog wouldn't just disappear. He's been coming here every single day, rain or shine. Something's not right." His voice was firm, and Sarah saw the concern in his eyes. She nodded, realizing he was probably right. Rusty wasn't just a stray, he was part of their lives now, even if they hadn't admitted it. That afternoon, Tom decided to take action. He grabbed his flashlight, a jacket, and a bottle of water, and told Sarah he was going to look for Rusty. "I'll check the woods and the streets," he said. "Maybe he got lost or hurt worse than we thought." Lily's eyes lit up with hope. "Can I come, Daddy?" she asked, but Tom shook his head. "No, sweetie, it's better if you stay here with Mom. I'll find him, I promise." As Tom stepped outside, the cool autumn air hit his face, and he felt a knot of worry tighten in his stomach. The woods behind their house were dense and shadowy, a place where kids dared each other to go but rarely did. He called Rusty's name as he walked, his flashlight beam cutting through the dim light. "Rusty, where are you, boy?" But there was no answer, only the crunch of leaves under his boots and the distant hoot of an owl. Back at the house, Lily sat by the window again, her face pressed against the glass. Sarah tried to distract her with books and games, but nothing worked. "He'll come back, Lily," Sarah said, though her own voice wavered with doubt. "He always does." But as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the windowsill remained empty. Lily's hope faded, replaced by a heavy aching fear. That night, Lily cried herself to sleep, clutching the blanket she used to leave for Rusty. She whispered his name over and over, her small body shaking with sobs. Sarah and Tom sat in the living room, the weight of the day pressing down on them. "What if something happened to him?" Sarah whispered, her hands clasped tightly. Tom didn't have an answer. He just stared at the floor, his mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. Little did they know, the truth was darker than they could imagine. Rusty's disappearance wasn't just a mystery, it was the beginning of a nightmare that would change their lives forever. But for now the house was quiet, the windowsill cold and empty, and Lily's heart was breaking with every passing second. The night after Rusty disappeared, the Thompson house felt heavier, like a storm was brewing just out of sight. Lily slept fitfully, her dreams filled with images of Rusty limping through the woods, his sad brown eyes searching for her. Sarah and Tom sat in the living room, the only light coming from a single lamp that cast long shadows on the walls. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices thick with worry. "I should have gone after him sooner," Tom said, rubbing his temples. His calloused hands, usually so steady from years of fixing things at the hardware store, trembled slightly. "What if he's hurt, or worse?" Sarah reached out and squeezed his hand, her own eyes red from crying. "We did what we could, Tom, but if he's out there, we'll find him. We have to." The next morning, Lily woke up with puffy eyes and a heavy heart. She dragged herself to the kitchen window, hoping against hope that Rusty would be there, wagging his tail and waiting for her. But the windowsill was still empty, the blanket she'd left for him damp and crumpled from the night's dew. "He's not coming back, is he?" she whispered, her voice small and broken. Sarah hugged her tightly, fighting back her own tears. "We don't know that, sweetie. Daddy's going to look again today. He'll find Rusty, I promise." Tom was already preparing to head out. He packed a backpack with water, a first aid kit, and his flashlight, even though the sun was just rising. "I'm going deeper into the woods this time," he told Sarah. "If Rusty's hurt, or stuck somewhere, I'll find him." Sarah nodded, but her face was pale with worry. "Be careful, Tom, and call if you need help." The woods behind their house were denser than ever that morning, the trees casting long shadows that made everything feel eerie. Tom called Rusty's name as he walked, his voice echoing through the stillness. "Rusty, come on, boy, where are you?" The only sounds were the crunch of leaves under his boots and the occasional rustle of a squirrel or bird. But as he ventured deeper, something caught his eye, a patch of disturbed earth near a ditch, surrounded by broken branches and scattered leaves. Tom's heart sank as he approached. There, lying motionless in the dirt, was Rusty. The dog's fur was even dirtier than before, and his injured leg looked worse, twisted at an odd angle. Tom dropped to his knees, his breath catching in his throat. "Rusty, oh no, buddy, what happened to you?" he said, his voice shaking. He reached out to touch the dog, but something else caught his attention. Fresh tire tracks in the mud nearby, deep and uneven, like someone had sped off in a hurry. There were also cigarette butts scattered around, still smelling faintly of smoke, and a piece of torn fabric caught on a thorn bush. Tom's mind raced. This wasn't just an accident, someone had been here, and recently. His stomach churned as he realized Rusty might not have wandered off or gotten lost, he might have been taken. Or worse. He checked Rusty for signs of life, but the dog was still, his chest barely moving. Tom's hands shook as he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "I need help," he said when the operator answered. "My daughter's dog. He's hurt, and I think something bad happened out here." While Tom waited for the police, he scanned the area more closely. The tire tracks led toward a narrow path that wound deeper into the woods, disappearing into the shadows. The cigarette butts looked fresh, and the fabric, black and rough, like part of a jacket, had a strange smell, like oil or gasoline. Tom's heart pounded. He'd heard rumors in town about a local gang, a rough group of men who caused trouble, stole things, and sometimes hurt animals for fun. Could they be involved? Back at the house, Lily sensed something was terribly wrong. She paced the living room, her small hands twisting the hem of her shirt. "Mom, why is Daddy taking so long? Did he find Rusty? Is he okay?" Sarah tried to stay calm, but her own anxiety was growing. "He's doing his best, honey. Let's wait a little longer." But inside, she was terrified. What if Tom found something awful? What if Rusty was gone for good? When the police arrived, they brought an ambulance and a K9 unit. Tom led them to the ditch, where Rusty lay, his voice hoarse as he explained what he'd seen: the tire tracks, the cigarette butts, the fabric. The officers exchanged grim looks. "This doesn't look like a stray dog just wandering off," one of them said, a tall man with a stern face. "These signs suggest someone was here, and not for a good reason." They carefully loaded Rusty onto a stretcher, and Tom followed the ambulance back to town, his mind spinning with fear and anger. At the vet, they confirmed Rusty was alive but barely. His injuries were worse than before: new bruises, a deeper cut on his side, and signs of struggle. The vet shook his head. "He's been through something terrible. We'll do what we can, but it's serious." Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. Neighbors gathered outside the Thompsons' house, whispering about the gang rumors. Some said they'd seen strange men in vans lurking around lately, while others recalled hearing dogs barking in the night. Lily overheard some of the talk and ran to her room, burying her face in her pillow. "Why would anyone hurt Rusty?" she sobbed. "He never did anything wrong." Sarah held her close, her own tears falling. "We don't know yet, baby. But the police are going to figure it out. We'll make sure whoever did this pays." But deep down, she wondered if justice would be enough to heal the wound in their family. Tom returned home late that night, his face pale and drawn. He told Sarah about the tire tracks and the fabric, his voice low and urgent. "I think it's that gang everyone's been talking about. They might have taken him, hurt him on purpose." Sarah gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "We have to tell the police everything. They need to catch these people before they hurt someone else." The house was silent after that, the weight of the discovery pressing down on them all. Lily fell asleep, clutching Rusty's blanket, her dreams now filled with dark shadows and strange men. Outside, the windowsill stood empty, a silent witness to the love that had once bloomed there, and the evil that had torn it apart. The days after Tom's discovery in the woods were a blur for the Thompson family. The house, once filled with Lily's laughter and the quiet hope of Rusty's morning visits, now felt heavy with worry and fear. Lily barely left her room, clutching Rusty's blanket and staring out the window at the empty sill, her big brown eyes red from crying. Sarah and Tom tried to stay strong for her, but the uncertainty gnawed at them, making every moment feel like an eternity. The police were busy, their sirens and flashing lights a constant presence in the quiet neighborhood. Officer Daniels, the tall man with the stern face who had first arrived at the scene, became a regular visitor at the Thompsons' house. He brought news, asked questions, and promised they were doing everything they could to find out what happened to Rusty. "We're following leads," he told Tom and Sarah one evening, his voice serious. "Those tire tracks and cigarette butts you found, they're important. We think this might be connected to a local gang." Lily overheard the word gang and froze, her small body trembling. "A gang? You mean bad people hurt Rusty?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Sarah pulled her close, stroking her curly hair. "We don't know for sure, sweetie, but the police are working hard to figure it out. They'll catch whoever did this." The investigation moved quickly. The police interviewed neighbors, searched the woods, and analyzed the evidence Tom had found. The tire tracks matched those of a van often seen in the area, driven by a group of men known for causing trouble. Witnesses came forward, their stories painting a chilling picture. An elderly woman down the street said she'd seen the van parked near the woods late at night, its engine running and strange noises coming from inside, like barking and shouting. A teenager on a bike claimed he'd seen the same men dragging a dog into the van a few days before Rusty disappeared. The pieces started to fit together, and the truth was worse than anyone imagined. The gang, a small but ruthless group called the Night Crawlers, had a reputation for cruelty. They didn't just steal or fight, they hurt animals for fun, using them as bait to lure compassionate people into traps. They'd target strays, injure them, and then watch as kind-hearted folks like Lily tried to help. Sometimes they'd rob the rescuers. Other times they'd just enjoy the chaos. Rusty, with his injured leg and trusting nature, had been the perfect target. When Officer Daniels returned to the Thompsons' house with this news, Tom's face turned red with anger. "Those monsters," he growled, his fists clenched. "They hurt Rusty on purpose." "For what? To scare people? To have fun?" Sarah put a hand on his arm, her own eyes blazing with fury and sadness. "We have to make sure they pay, Tom. For Rusty and for Lily." Lily, who had been listening from the hallway, ran to her parents, tears streaming down her face. "They can't hurt him anymore, right? They can't take him away again," she sobbed. Sarah hugged her tightly, her voice breaking. "No, baby, they won't. The police are going to stop them." The next morning, the police raided the gang's hideout, a rundown warehouse on the edge of town, surrounded by barbed wire and graffiti. What they found inside was heartbreaking. Cages lined the walls, some empty, some holding other injured animals, dogs, cats, even a raccoon with a broken leg. And there in the darkest corner was Rusty. He was alive but barely, his fur matted with blood and dirt, his eyes dull with pain and fear. His injured leg was swollen, and new cuts crisscrossed his body, evidence of the cruelty he'd endured. The officers carefully freed Rusty and the other animals, their faces grim as they arrested the gang members, 3 men with cold eyes and smirking faces. One of them, the leader, spat on the ground as he was handcuffed. "That mutt was nothing," he sneered. "Just a game." Those words sent a chill through everyone who heard them, a reminder of the evil that had invaded their peaceful town. Back at the vet, Rusty was rushed into surgery. Lily begged to see him, her small hands clutching her mother's skirt. "Please, Mom, I need to know he's okay." Sarah nodded, her own heart breaking as they drove to the clinic. When they arrived, the vet met them with a solemn expression. "He's alive, but it's bad," he said. "He's been starved, beaten and left in a cage for days. We're doing everything we can, but it's touch and go." Lily sat by Rusty's side in a small room, her tears falling onto his fur as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, Rusty. I should have protected you." The dog's eyes flickered open for a moment, and he licked her hand weakly, a faint wag of his tail showing he still recognized her. That small gesture broke Lily's heart all over again, but it also gave her hope. The gang was charged with animal cruelty, kidnapping, and attempted robbery. Their plan had been to use Rusty to lure someone out of their house so they could steal valuables. The news spread through the town, and neighbors rallied around the Thompsons, bringing food, flowers, and offers of help. But for Lily, Sarah, and Tom, the victory felt hollow. Rusty was still fighting for his life, and the innocence of their little world was gone, replaced by a dark knowledge of cruelty they couldn't unsee. That night, the house was quiet again, but the silence was different now, filled with exhaustion, anger, and a desperate hope. Lily fell asleep holding Rusty's blanket, her dreams haunted by the image of his cage and the sneering faces of the men who hurt him. Sarah and Tom sat up late, planning to attend the trial, determined to see justice done. Outside, the windowsill remained empty, a painful reminder of what they'd lost, and what they still might lose. The truth had been uncovered, but the pain was far from over. The Thompsons knew they had a long road ahead, but they also knew they'd face it together, for Rusty and for each other. The days after the police raid were a mix of relief and dread for the Thompson family. The gang, the Night Crawlers, was in custody, their cruel faces plastered on the evening news as the town celebrated their arrest. Neighbors cheered, and the local paper ran headlines about justice for the animals, but inside the little yellow house with the flower boxes, there was no celebration. Only silence, worry, and the faint hope that Rusty might pull through. Lily spent every spare moment at the vet's clinic, sitting by Rusty's side in a small sterile room that smelled of antiseptic and sadness. The dog was hooked up to machines, his breathing shallow, his fur patchy from where the vets had shaved it to treat his wounds. His once bright eyes were now dull, but every time Lily whispered to him, he'd twitch an ear or flick his tail, just enough to let her know he was still there, still fighting. "Stay with me, Rusty," she'd say. Her voice soft and trembling. "You're my best friend, I need you." She'd bring his blanket from home, tucking it around him, and stroke his head gently. Sometimes, he'd lick her hand, a weak but loving gesture that made her heart ache with both love and fear. Sarah and Tom took turns staying with her, their own hearts heavy with guilt and hope. "We should have done more," Sarah whispered to Tom one night as they drove home, leaving Lily at the clinic. "We knew he was in danger, but we let him keep coming back." Tom shook his head, his jaw tight. "We didn't know, Sarah, but we'll make sure those monsters pay. And we'll be here for Lily, no matter what." The vet warned them that Rusty's chances were slim. "He's been through too much," the vet said, his voice kind but firm. "His body's given up, even if his heart hasn't. Be prepared for the worst." Those words hung over the family like a dark cloud, but they refused to give up hope. They brought toys, treats, and even played soft music in his room, hoping to comfort him. One afternoon, as the autumn leaves fell outside and the air turned crisp, the vet called with urgent news. "You need to come now," he said. "It doesn't look good." Lily, Sarah, and Tom rushed to the clinic, their hearts pounding. When they arrived, Rusty was lying on his side, his breathing uneven. The machines beeped faintly, a sad soundtrack to their fear. Lily climbed onto a chair beside his bed, her small hands reaching out to touch his fur. "Rusty, it's me," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please don't go, I love you so much." For a moment, Rusty's eyes opened, and he looked at her, really looked at her, with that same gratitude and love he'd shown every morning at the windowsill. He licked her hand once, weakly, and his tail gave the tiniest wag, as if to say goodbye. Then, with a final shuddering breath, he closed his eyes. The machines flatlined, and the room filled with a heavy silence. Lily let out a wail, burying her face in his fur. "No, Rusty, no, come back," she cried, her small body shaking with sobs. Sarah and Tom rushed to her side, wrapping their arms around her, their own tears falling freely. The vet stepped out, giving them a moment alone with their grief. For hours they stayed there, holding each other and mourning the dog who had brought so much light into their lives. Lily's cries eventually softened into quiet sobs, and she whispered, "He was my best friend. Why did they have to hurt him?" Sarah stroked her hair, her voice breaking. "I don't know, baby, but we'll make sure his memory lives on. He was brave, and he loved you so much." Tom clenched his fists, his anger mixing with his sadness. "Those men will pay," he said firmly. "The trial's coming, and we'll be there. They won't get away with this." The police had already promised a harsh sentence for the night crawlers, but no punishment could bring Rusty back, or erase the pain he'd endured. The next day, the town held a small memorial for Rusty and the other animals rescued from the gang's warehouse. Neighbors brought flowers, candles, and pictures of their own pets, creating a circle of light in the park where children usually played. Lily placed Rusty's blanket in the center, along with a drawing she'd made of him sitting on the windowsill, wagging his tail. "This is for you, Rusty," she said, her voice steady but sad. "You were the best dog ever." The community rallied around the Thompsons, offering support and vowing to keep the neighborhood safe. A local animal shelter started a fund in Rusty's name to help injured strays, and Lily promised to volunteer there when she was older. "I want to help dogs like Rusty," she told her parents. "So no one else has to go through this." The windowsill at their house stayed closed after that, a silent tribute to the love they'd shared with Rusty. Lily would still sit by it sometimes, looking out at the woods where he used to disappear, her heart heavy but slowly healing. Sarah and Tom painted the sill white, adding a small plaque with Rusty's name and the words "Forever Loved" as a reminder of the bond they'd lost. The trial of the night crawlers was swift and brutal. The men were sentenced to years in prison, their sneers replaced by defeat as the judge condemned their cruelty. The town breathed a sigh of relief, but for the Thompsons, the victory was bittersweet. Rusty was gone, and no amount of justice could fill the hole he left. Months passed, and the pain dulled, though it never fully went away. Lily kept Rusty's blanket on her bed, and sometimes she'd dream of him running toward her, healthy and happy, his tail wagging wildly. In those dreams, the windowsill was open again, and he jumped through, landing in her arms with a bark of joy. One evening, as the first snow of winter fell, Lily sat by the window, watching the flakes dance in the moonlight. "I miss you, Rusty," she whispered. And though the sill stayed closed, she felt a warmth in her heart, a reminder that love, even when it's lost, never truly fades.